I think there's a lot of misconceptions in the world of fashion, Georgina.
So many people, I think, they look at the fashion industry that it's, it's super glamorous. We sit on the front row of fashion shows, or we're going to these amazing parties, that it's, we're flying business class everywhere, when the realism is it's bloody hard work.
This is Challenger Brands, helping you build better brands and businesses. Hosted by Illustrado, the brand development and creative agency for ambitious and audacious challenger brands.
Welcome to another episode of Challenger Brands, where we talk about branding, marketing, sales, entrepreneurship, and everything else to help you build better brands and businesses. I'm Lalaine Benitez, and today we are talking about the business of fashion. How to build a fashion business, especially here in the UAE, where fashion seems like a very, very lucrative business. The market is expected to grow to $3.7 billion in 2025. And for that topic of discussion, we have the divine Georgina Hills. Thank you for coming today, Georgina. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, very excited to be here. Thank you, Lalaine.
I'm so excited to have you. Georgina is a luxury and brand strategy change ambassador and coach. You've spent a lot of time in the fashion industry, 20 years in the luxury and fashion brand industry. You have worked with Zara, H&M, and then Saint Laurent, Dolce and Gabbana, Chloe, Armani, all of these luxury brands, including the esteemed houses of the Chalhoub Group and the Tayer Group. I'm sure you have a lot to share with our audiences and listeners right now.
Yeah, no, indeed. So it's been a long journey.
It is a long journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm very interested, Georgina. I asked you this earlier. How did you get into this? Was this intentional on your part that you wanted to get into fashion?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I think when people ask me that question, I always say that fashion is in my DNA. So really kind of think inspired from my grandmother. She was, very much into fashion. Every time I would go to her house, there would always be fashion magazines lying around. My mother also, very much into fashion as well. So I kind of grew up on that, and then I think I knew from a very young age, since I was a teenager, that I wanted to be a fashion buyer. And I did it in quite an unconventional route. I enjoyed myself too much at college.
As we all do.
As we all do, of course,
Right.
of course. And I decided to work my way up through retail. So, in order to do it. So
it's a very interesting and inspiring story, and perhaps you can share that with our audience, Georgina. You said you started at retail.
Yes.
And I think this is a very important message, that we can share, that getting into fashion does not necessarily entail having to take a 4-year course in university. I think it's about really knowing the nuts and bolts of the business, right?
Yeah, correct. I mean, it's really hard work, like hard graft. And I had a vision. I knew where I kind of really wanted to be. And I was, I suppose, kind of quite strategic in a long way, in terms of choosing the retailers and working with the retailers that I did, working very long hours, knowing the basics of how retail works, working on the shop floor, dealing with customers, day in, day out, working on the fitting rooms, dealing, with client issues, checking off deliveries, I did it all. So, I worked my way up in, really within the high streets in the UK. So I work with the big giants such as H&M, Zara, where, if you're not familiar with the business model there, where you're almost, reordering or buying the stock for your store.
Turnover so fast.
Yes. Yeah, amazing. So that kind of gave me the grounding for the buying. I then worked with Topshop as well in its heyday with the Kate Moss collaboration in London. And I also did a course. Well, it was an evening course at London College of Fashion. And then I got the opportunity to come to Dubai. So Tayer approached me, and I came here 14 years ago as a brand manager, and then Dubai, being the land of opportunities, was able to, within that scope of work, as a brand manager, you're looking at the business from a 360 point of view. So again, every business touch point and every business element. And I was able to buy the product, and I was also buying the selection for the Armani stores in the GCC. And then my career kind of then moved around. I worked at Namshi when that started 10 years ago, heading up the ready-to-wear buying team. And then I was missing luxury, so went back and I worked with Chloe, Chalhoub Group for many years, and with brands such as Dolce and Gabbana, Versace, Max Mara, and many more. I think I've touched many of the brands now, and then most recently Saint Laurent. So
and now you help fashion entrepreneurs with your new venture, Room 102. Can you tell us a little bit about Room 102?
No, of course. So Room 102 really came out of. I suppose I reached fashion burnout, and I had a couple of years ago, I was kind of consulting brands, on and off, like working with a couple of emerging designers, and I kind of got a taste for it. I also qualified to be a yoga teacher, and I kind of realized there was a real need in the the fashion industry to kind of really help these emerging brands, startups who have an amazing design idea, but maybe don't have that commercial aspect to kind of really help grow and accelerate their business. But Room 102 is a holistic fashion consultancy, because the idea is that I also bring in the the coaching and the wellness element to it, because it's so easy to get burnt out in the industry, in the fashion industry. So, it really is kind of a holistic view and a holistic approach, and that's how I work with my clients within the consultancy.
That's amazing. Fashion as a business is so interesting right now, especially in a place like the UAE, where you can actually reinvent yourself, right?
Yes.
So many people that we meet want to have their own fashion brand.
Yeah.
And the giving movement, raising $15 million in funding back in 2022, that's again another validation that some of the homegrown brands can really make it out here.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of misconceptions in the world of fashion, Georgina, and perhaps you can talk about what are these main misconceptions, and how do we correct them? What are the expectations on the fashion business that need to be corrected?
No, of course. I mean, so many people, I think, they look at the fashion industry that it's super glamorous, that all we do is we we sit on the front row of fashion shows, or we're going to these amazing parties, that it's we're flying business class everywhere, when the realism is it's bloody hard work.
It is,
and
isn't
you're
it?
working super long hours. If you think about and how the industry has grown over the last 10 years, is malls are open 24/7. You have the business now is omnichannel, it's online, offline. So really how it doesn't stop, it's never ending. And it's so competitive now that, every brand is like, it's what's next. So kind of, and people think that growth is going to happen overnight. When you're starting up a business, realistically, that's kind of not what happens. So it's,
It's pretty nonstop, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, paint the picture. I know you were talking about this earlier. Maybe 3 months down the line before a brand launch, how chaotic is it? What are the things that are happening? What should people brace for?
Right?
Craziness, right?
Craziness, yeah. And working all the time, and I think a big part as well is almost having that growth mindset, and just you need to adapt. You need to approach every challenge, because you'll have everything thrown at you, while you're trying to launch a brand. So suppliers are not meeting, the deadlines, or, other things can happen. Your marketing campaign is not as strong as you expect it, or all of these things can happen.
Definitely.
So it's really, looking at how to adapt during that time is such a key,
Yeah. And I think
behavior.
another complication there is that the UAE is so competitive when it comes to fashion, right? There's so many brands.
Yeah.
The world is out here.
Yes.
Everything from the world of fashion is coming to the UAE or is already in here. And then you've got the homegrown brands out here as well, competing for a piece of the pie, right?
Yeah. No, that's so true. That's so true.
How important is brand building? I know this is one of your specialties. Take us through what makes a compelling and unique brand in fashion right now. So for owners of, startups, how do they start building a brand? How do they frame this? What are the things to think about?
A big part which people forget about is market research, and really kind of, looking at who your competitors are or potential competitors. And really looking at everything from what is their price positioning, who is their client, what is their USP, because all of this then helps you devise what your USP should be, which is something that is so important in such a competitive market now. Is really how you define that, and then how you also leverage that as well.
Really start from the ground up and understand what the situation is before you even start talking about your positioning, right?
Yeah. That's it.
Digital space, that's the biggest battlefield, I guess, these days for any brand, especially fashion, right?
Yeah.
What are the things that are necessary for a fashion entrepreneur?
Yeah.
That they have to be there, they have to have their presence there, and how do they differentiate themselves?
Yeah, no.
There are so many competing brands. Every day you see so much content, so much material. How do they differentiate themselves?
Yeah. I mean, an omnichannel presence, so really having a strong online presence is super important. Your digital strategy, so there's so many, there's so many platforms now. I mean, recently we've had Threads launching, you have Instagram, you have Facebook. And a big part of this, again, is consistency in communication. In fashion and luxury brand, that consistency is very important. It needs to feel elevated. It needs to feel targeted, and not en masse. So feeling very, very refined. Having that, personal message is very important now, and that's how people connect to any brand, but particularly luxury brands. People want to be spoken to, especially when you're spending, 10,000 dirhams on a handbag.
Exactly, yeah.
You want that personal, that personal touch. Or if you're spending, you have some clients that spend, easily 1 million dirhams, in a year. How are you communicating to that client across every touch point as well? So it's very important.
It can't be a one-size-fits-all kind of situation. And like you said, you will understand this if you do your research right.
Yes.
Then you can actually skew your communication to fit that right target market.
Yeah, very much so, because there's so many different elements you need to consider, whether you're targeting a particular demographic, like it's Gen Z, or a personal client, depending on the tier that they've, the value that they've spent with you and in your in your brand, really.
Definitely. I mean, it has to be resonant, right? It has to resonate. If you're talking to the Gen Zers, you need to talk like a Gen Z, personality, right?
Yeah.
You can't talk like a boomer if your target market is Gen Z, right? I wanted to ask you, this is a very probably controversial question. Luxury as a word has been so abused, especially in the fashion industry. I see brands that proclaim themselves as luxury and then they sell 200 dirham dresses.
Yeah.
Define what actual luxury is for people out there, so it's very clear for people if they want to get into that space. What makes a luxury brand?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the first word that comes up when everybody thinks of luxury is that it should be aspirational. And a big part of that is making sure that every part of your business, every touch point of your business is aspirational. So whether it's from the design to the fabrics and the materials that you're using, being the highest craftsmanship, the highest quality. It's whether it's to do with, again, your marketing strategy and how and how qualitative it feels and how rich and aspirational it feels. It could be anything from your packaging. So, these types of small details that are very, very important. How amazing does it feel when you receive, packaging and there's a personalized note inside, for example, in this beautiful box that's sustainable, because that's really important as well now. So all of these different elements, that need to kind of be incorporated to feel luxury, because luxury is about emotions, and that's how how you want your client to feel. So really thinking of how am I going to make my client feel special.
It's really about being detail oriented, isn't it? From the product to the experience to whatever touch points there are, from your website, your retail outlet, wherever. To your events.
Exactly.
Engagements and initiatives.
Events and that one-to-one communication. People like that speaking now even to the designer. Meeting the designer at an event and having that interaction. Before it used to be almost mysterious who's the designer, but people now want that. Having an intimate dinner with the designer is super important.
Definitely. Earlier you were talking about some really very good case studies, with the luxury brands and how they've been able to evolve through the years.
Yeah.
You were speaking about Loewe, and we also spoke about Louis Vuitton and Balenciaga, how they changed, and now they're embracing the younger target consumers. Can you speak a little bit about that? How these brands have stayed relevant through the years?
Yeah. I think a big part. Loewe is a brand that I actually worked with, and I was there as part of the transition. As Jonathan came in, it was. He launched the puzzle, which was super innovative. There was no other handbag like this in the market. And, I think what he has continued to do in this brand has been to continuously innovate and challenge the industry, really, but still keeping to the Loewe craftsmanship and
not losing the DNA, right?
Exactly. He really, they have one of the most beautiful leathers in the industry, all made in Spain, and he's very much about the arts. He's very much about craftsmanship and the artisans, and you see that again through. And what we were saying about touch points earlier on, you see it in his fashion shows, you see it in his in his boutiques, in his stores. So you see it again across, every touch point. So he's not afraid. He was one of the first designers to really kind of go out there with, genderless fashion. So he wasn't
That's
afraid.
Amazing. That's very brilliant and so of the times right now.
Yeah. So somebody that's really revolutionized that. Louis Vuitton is another brand who have been quite strategic in their collaborations, for example. So whether it's brand collaborations such as Supreme, which brought in a new demographic. You know, the streetwear trend, was just, you know, was beginning to start. And this enabled them to bring in, you know, that younger, cool,
Definitely.
you know, brand while still, you know, keeping that element of their DNA.
I mean, maybe 20 years ago, you can't even imagine a Louis Vuitton belonging so comfortably with a brand like Supreme, right?
Yeah.
But
no,
now
exactly.
it works. It really works. It's so brilliant.
It is amazing. And who'd have thought Pharrell would be there, you know,
Exactly.
as the creative director for, you know, for Louis Vuitton. But yeah.
So evolution is so important. I think a lot of brands become very comfortable.
Yes.
And probably in the fashion industry, that's not a good thing. How necessary is evolving on a regular basis?
Yeah.
How important is it to brands?
Very important. You cannot just have one vision and not adapt. I mean, so much has changed in the market, and is constantly changing. You know, with new designers coming on board. So it's you know, you really have to keep an eye on your competition all the time. Really understand the industry, what's happening, you know, within the industry, and just almost keeping, you know, one step ahead. So yeah.
And I think it's a business where you have to set the trends, right? So you need to keep changing.
Yeah.
Without losing your DNA.
Yeah, exactly. Without losing your DNA, and don't be afraid to take risks.
Right. And with that marks our first half of the podcast. I'd just like to take a moment here to thank our partners, Rove Hotels. Thank you so much for your support, Rove.
This is Challenger Brands. Please subscribe to our channel and share our content. Follow us on our agency's social media pages, Illustrado.co, on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, or subscribe to our newsletter via our website, www.illustrado.co. Thank you to our sponsors for today's episode. Rove Hotels. Rove Hotels are a jumping-off point for city explorers, simply designed for the young and young at heart. Born in Dubai, Rove is an award-winning lifestyle brand offering well-designed hotels, fuss-free service, and great value in well-connected locations. More than just a bed for the night, Rove provides rovers, the missing link to connect you to the city like a local, and explore the track less trodden in a relaxed environment where you can be yourself. With sustainability, local art, and high-performing functionality at the heart of its brand, Rove represents a new niche of hospitality for the digital nomad looking to become part of the neighborhood, even when they're just passing through. Please check them out at rovehotels.com.
Georgina, sustainability. It's a big word. Is it really necessary for fashion brands to be sustainable? How important is this?
Very. I mean, I can't probably stress enough how important it is. I mean, obviously not just for the environment and for climate change, but also from a strategic point of view to speaking to your consumers. You know, it's what everyone expects now to be, you know, to be considered and part of the business.
Is it a good to have or a must have?
Must have. And it's, you know, I mean, ideally it's looking at every part of the business. But, you know, if you're a startup, you know, it can be, it can be challenging maybe financially to how you invest in this, but there's certain areas that you can have a look at. So you know, whether it's production and how the items are being produced. I mean, obviously local production within your country is ideal. Really understanding the factories and kind of understanding what their labor practices are. It could be how the sourcing fabrics and how you're sourcing fabrics. They're either looking at sustainable fabrics, or looking at recycling fabrics, for example. I mean, I'll give you an example. There's an amazing platform or a website now, which was set up by LVMH, called Nona, where you can actually buy, almost like their leftovers of their fabrics, which is
amazing.
Yeah, which is amazing. So this is kind of a nice start for for startups, on how to do that. It could even be looking at your packaging and having sustainable packaging. So it's kind of looking at every area. It could be looking at your team and making sure that you have that. Ethical guidelines available there for your team and a diverse team. So it can vary. It can vary across every touch point.
There's so many different things that a business can do, right? And I think it doesn't have to be intimidating, right?
Yeah.
They can start small, and really from there you can grow a really sustainability oriented policies within your company.
No, quite easily. I mean, something to consider is greenwashing. This has been a big term that's kind of been thrown around recently, and just making sure that what you're communicating on, making sure that it is actually sustainable. So that's something that's really key. So many brands have miscommunicated on this. So just making sure that communication that's going out is is true and correct.
It's true. With the brands that you've worked with that have a sustainability policy, have you seen any brands that would say that they had a commercial benefit to being sustainable? I mean, commercial benefit from the fact that people associate with brands, they're going to buy into it if they feel like they're contributing back to the environment. That's a great point.
Yeah. So that connection again that you're building to your client, and then they'll keep coming back. So that's where the commercial element comes in, because they will keep coming back and buying from you, which is what you want in a competitive market.
And I think younger consumers now are becoming more and more conscious about the environment. So it just makes commercial sense to go through this route, right?
Yeah. It really does.
Definitely. Now let's talk about customer retention strategies. It's a very competitive market out there. A lot of brands are already sustainable. It's a very fickle market, because one brand on trend right now might be not the trend anymore. The next season, it's going to be another brand. How does one keep customers engaged and coming back for more?
Yeah. It's interesting because you've seen that, especially with many luxury brands over the years, where they've lost clients. For one reason or another. But, I mean, building that relationship, that personalization, I suppose is kind of really important here, to kind of really keep your clients coming back. So whether it's, I think like we were saying earlier on, like how you communicate to your clients, making them feel like they're the only clients within your brand. So many luxury brands do this amazingly well, where that client feels like they're the most precious client to that business. It's how you want to make your customers feel. Something that's been very important over the last few years has been personalization of products and exclusive collections, and especially for this region, it's very important, especially if you have, many, ladies at a party, exclusive party, and you can't have everybody turning up with the same bag or the same shoes or the same gown. So just really adding that exclusive item or personalization, and even made to order, to have that available within your collection to kind of really personalize it for the clients.
That's a very good insight. Marketing for fashion and luxury is such an expensive thing, right?
Yeah.
What are the things, I mean, for budding entrepreneurs, if they have a startup, what are the things that are most important to be considered in their budget?
Yeah.
Since not everybody has, a $15 million US dollar funding, that they've raised. There are a lot of small entrepreneurs out there trying to break out in fashion. What are the main things that they need to spend their money on?
Yeah. So marketing, most definitely. The key areas are your social media and your branding. Kind of have like a key strong branding aesthetic. It can be, I've come across amazing designers who, when I look at their website and their social media, it doesn't match the product that they're showing in front of me.
Yes.
So, it's really making sure that, you're really investing in having, that strong social media and that strong website, making sure that your website is user friendly as well for your client and is easy to navigate and easy to close the transaction as well. And then also, just investing in terms of production. Ideally, not holding stock. This can really drain your cash.
That's so expensive, isn't it? Holding inventory.
Holding inventory is, it can be very, very challenging. So it's either, negotiating, deals with your factories in terms of your minimums, your MOQs that you're producing, or working on a made-to-order basis, which is what many brands are doing, but also, looking and kind of finding those factories or production line that can actually do that and produce that. So the kind of key areas to kind of really look at to kind of grow and leverage your business. And one thing that's really key that I've come across new brands again that don't do is data management. Managing your data across, again, every touch point. So whether it's merchandising, whether it's your marketing, this later on will really help you leverage and grow your business. So managing data is something that is really important and can be done inexpensively, but doing it correctly is important.
When you manage your data, you learn more about the business, right?
Exactly.
So you can be more effective at forecasting.
Yeah.
You also understand your consumers better. Tell us a little bit more about data management, because that's a very good point. What else can people get out of data management?
Yeah. I mean, it's looking at, I think like you said, it enables you to adapt and grow your business very, very quickly. So you could have, for example, if you're looking at your product assortment, you're really managing all your KPIs in order to, what are my best sellers? What's the volume of my best sellers? What colors am I selling? What fabrics am I selling? And then you can really adjust accordingly.
Definitely.
And invest more where you need to, and then cut back where you need to as well. And this also helps with the whole sustainability, because if you're not managing your KPI, your merchandising KPIs, and you're just producing and producing and producing
that's
products,
going to be a very expensive mistake,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. So it allows you to kind of really monitor and define and redefine your business. So you're continually to grow. You're investing in what's performing, and then you're cutting back and reducing what's not.
That's a very good point. Now, very close to home, because we've worked with a lot of the local fashion houses here. What can local fashion houses, in the UAE do to grow further? Because we see a lot of talent out there in the market. What's missing, and what do you think can help bolster the growth of, these local fashion houses?
Yeah. There is so much talent in the market, and I've seen it grown, and hence why Room 102 came about. I've seen it grow so much over the last couple of years. That's quite interesting. I think, until the last year, the focus has been on other areas of the world. So whether it be Europe or, the US. And I think, really now the focus is on the Middle East, post-recovery after the pandemic. And just there is so much, there's so much talent here. Sometimes I think it's confidence. And some of these brands just, don't have the confidence, or may have an amazing design idea, but don't have the commercial know-how on how to, you know, to leverage and kind of really grow their business. So yeah,
They need guidance.
they need guidance. Yeah,
They need guidance from people like you. Definitely. So how can Room 102 help these designers?
yeah,
Tell us.
yeah.
You know, how do you help designers build their brands better?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a collaboration, really, a collaboration, partnership. So really we really, you know, start by really digging in and exploring a little bit more about the business, you know, what the brand's mission and vision is, and maybe even defining that if they're not quite there yet. Really exploring what their USP is, or maybe helping identify the USP. Obviously, working on and then working on a roadmap or a business strategy together to kind of really grow their business. So sometimes it might be a whole 360 approach and looking at every element. Sometimes it might be just part of the business that we agree that needs to be grown, and then we really kind of develop and explore that. So it could be, you know, anything from, you know, a brand that's been, you know, going for a couple of years, established for a couple of years, but don't know the next step. So it could be and have a very strong design aesthetic. So we could be looking at the collection structure and how, you know, how they're looking at their seasonality. It could be, you know, how we leverage on their USP, how we're communicating that across every touch point. It could be looking at their pricing structure. Maybe we need to reposition. Maybe there needs to be an alignment, you know, against the competition. So it's really looking at that. It could be looking at potential partnerships. It could be looking at the omnichannel strategy. Are they online? Are they offline? If they're, you know, if they have a presence in bricks and mortar and pop-ups, how are we doing that? How are we approaching it? So
It's a whole lot of things, but I think it's really strengthening the backbone of the business, right?
Yeah, no, very much so. And, you know, for me as well, you know, I studied to be a coach earlier this year. So the idea of bringing in the coaching is to kind of really help, you know, so many of these brands kind of get stuck, and sometimes it can be, you know, from a mindset point of view. So really kind of, that's kind of what I bring in terms of with the consultancy as well, is maybe how we unpack that and how we, you know, how we remove it together in order that, you know, the business grows. You know, if we've worked together for a year and then I'm not there as their partner anymore, how do they sustain that?
I like that it's holistic, the approach. That sounds very good. I'm going to share your details. So if anybody needs Georgina's help out there, if you're a budding, you know, fashion entrepreneur and you really want to build a robust fashion business, please do get in touch with her. Georgina, are there people who are not suited to become fashion entrepreneurs? I've seen entrepreneurs who are in fashion who are not really fashion oriented. Is there a type of person who's not really suited for this kind of a job?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a passion for fashion. I think, as we were saying earlier on, it's freaking tough. It is a tough industry. There's so many ups and downs. There's so many challenges. So you have to really love it and be, you know, super passionate about it. And because it's so competitive, you have to be very innovative. So if you're not innovative, if you're not adaptable, if you don't have that growth mindset and you have a fixed mindset, then it will be a challenge.
If you can go back in time and speak to young Georgina on the retail floor, what would you tell her differently today in terms of her, you know, in terms of her journey, you know, towards the fashion business? Are you going to advise her to change something? What will be your advice to young people out there dreaming about having a career in fashion?
Wow, nice question.
You had to think there for a while.
Yeah,
Okay,
I did, Lalaine. That's
stepping back in time.
Yeah, putting myself in. I think I was 19 when I started in fashion. Putting myself in 19-year-old Georgina's shoes. What would I say to myself? Just work hard. Like I did work hard. Like my passion for many years and my focus for many years has been this career because it was something that I wanted so much. And so you've got to graft is the word, and continue to graft. I think the only advice I would give myself is to probably recognize myself a little bit more. So all of the goals that I achieved over the years, sometimes I was probably always on to the next one. So probably some advice I would share is to stop sometimes and just acknowledge when you've achieved, something amazing, and just take that moment to reflect on it.
That's amazing.
And
we
keep
always
working
forget
hard.
about ourselves, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. No, very much so.
What's your final word of advice for entrepreneurs out there?
I suppose a couple of things. Keep going.
Definitely don't
Keep
stop.
going, no matter when you have hurdles thrown at you. Just keep going. Continue to be innovative. Continue to adapt. Really define your purpose. For yourself and within your brand. Consider sustainability. And just don't give up. Don't give up. It's rewarding. It is rewarding.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Georgina, and for all those, very, very actionable insights. I'm sure that a lot of people in our audience now have some sort of guidance on how they're going to be taking their business forward.
Yeah, amazing.
Thank
you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for your time. And yes, to all of you listening out there, to all our audiences out there, if you're watching right now, take heart. It's really, really a tough business, that's for sure. Buckle up. You have a big, bumpy ride ahead of you, but there's rewards for people who stick and hustle and do the work, and be very, very smart about doing all the things that are entailed of your fashion business. Be very strategic, be very intentional, and please do not forget to ask for help. That's always an important thing, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Don't do it on your own. You've got people like Georgina to help you. And we're going to be sharing your details, Georgina. Thank you again. And thank you to everybody who joined us today. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Lalaine.
All right. Bye-bye.
Please subscribe to our channel and share our content. For more actionable insights on brand and business building, follow us on our agency's social media pages, Illustrado.co, or subscribe to our newsletter via our website, www.illustrado.co.